time, and we believe that Jesus did not do much down there, or did not even go down that way. It's one of the Decapolis. Tiberias, where you're staying, is one of the Decapolis, the 10 cities, Roman cities. It was built by Herod Antipas, the son of Herod the Great, and it was named after the Caesar Tiberius. Jesus has been up here for almost 3 years. He was stationed in Capernaum, where we're going. You're going to be praying Mass over the house.
Two Jewish fishermen at 5 in the morning, Shimi and Udi. And I said, can I ask you some questions? Oh, you can ask questions. I said, what kind of fish are these? Why do you fish at night? How much money are you going to make on this fish today? And he says, you ask too many questions. He says, why don't you just come out with us tonight and go fishing and see for yourself? Oh. Guess what I said? What time do you want me here? He said, 6 o'clock tonight, you be here, and then you go out with us in our boat. 6 o'clock I was there, jumped in that fishing boat with Udi and Shimi, and off we went into the Sea of Galilee for a night of fishing. Talk about living the Bible in the Holy Land. So we got in their boat, and we headed up to the north tip, where we're heading, right up by near where Bethsaida, the northern tip, where the Jordan River runs into the sea. And so we set up the nets the first thing, and they're about 1 meter long. It's about a ½ mile. They have kerosene lanterns on each end on a buoy, so that when you put it in one end, you make it a big semicircle and come around and then put the second end of the kerosene lantern. And you can see these out at night, by the way. You look out at night, you can see these little red lights out in the sea. And then we went, because it wasn't dark yet, they don't want to fish till it's dark, they pulled into the Jordan River, where it comes into the Sea of Galilee, and they tied their boats to the bushes, and they had dinner. They pulled out pita bread and hummus and tomatoes and coffee, all the things that you've been eating, and they're yelling back and forth at each other in Hebrew, because there's 3 or 4 or 5 boats all tied to the bushes. And they're big, muscly guys, you know, darks, you know, from, not only because they're from the land, they're dark, but also from the sun. And they're yelling back and forth in Hebrew and smoking their cigarettes. And I realized all of a sudden, my goodness, I'm out here in a boat with Peter, Andrew, James, and John.
First time. Are you ready?
Yes.
1, 2, for supporting. 3. Oh yeah, beautiful. The way the thing is working, it's open like a parachute. And it's
Americans tend to be afraid to come to Israel, but look at this. These are buses packed with people coming many countries. Some America, most of them from East Europe and Africa and so on. Buses everywhere. It's not a problem coming to Israel. It's safe. Look at all these people here who are having a great time. None of them are getting hurt. None of them are afraid. It's a wonderful place to be. just getting off the bus. We're going into this very nice Tangerine restaurant where we always have our lunch, and I'll take you in and show you what we get to have.
All right, the bathrooms are down the hall down there, and these first two tables, this table and the next one, is for our group.
True interpretation of the Bible? Can I take Billy Graham's position on it, or James Dobson, or Pastor Charles Stanley, or Charles Haddock Spurgeon, or R.C. Sproul, who is one of my favorite theologians? And by the way, I moved to Switzerland, Janet and I, for a year and studied with Dr. Francis Schaeffer at L'Abri, because he was one of my favorites. But he disagreed with Luther on so many. Who in the world am I going to go to be the final judge? And guess what I realized? That I had to become the final judge, because there was no moderator, there was no arbiter, there was no final court of appeals. Church. And then came the teaching, and it was verbal teaching. Nothing was written for the first decades. It was all verbal teaching and preaching. Paul said, how will they believe if they do not hear? And how will they hear if they do not have a preacher? And it wasn't how do they hear if they don't have a book? And so these things started to rattle around in my mind as a sola scriptura advocate, and there's nobody who loves scripture more than I do, but now I think that I have it in the proper place. Thought of the day so far?
It was absolutely wonderful. The churches are inspiring, and for my third time, I feel like I'm newborn all over again.
Anybody you want to say hi to back home?
Yes, my husband Randy and my 3 grandbabies, my daughter and her husband, and all of my family and friends, and you better be watching. I love you guys.